Hi, it's John from Crafts by John UK. Today's project, I will show you how to take this simple black and white stamped image and turn it into a beautiful Christmas card that's coloured with 3D effect snow and lots of sparkle on all the snow effects. If you're interested to see how we do that in a very short space of time, stay tuned. So let's get started. I've got my stamped image here, this cute sort of cabin in the woods with a few trees, a simple Happy Christmas sentiment in the background. I've stamped this in basic VersaFine black onyx pigment ink, and I've also heat embossed it with clear embossing powder. You can possibly just catch the shadow there, or I mean the shine, sorry, where it's been heat embossed. This makes colouring a lot easier. I've got my Arteza pens. I'm quite zoomed in on this one because I want to be able to show you the kind of the detail, but I've got a different sort of selection of pens, and I'm just going to pick some and quickly colour it. I'm going to use my water brush. This is a simple brush with water. This brush stays kind of wet because the water goes down it. And the other thing you need is a basic acrylic block. So I'm going to keep zoomed in quite tight, and I'm just going to work my way through this image. Now I'll show you how I colour. Actually, I might go in even a little bit closer. There we go. So these water pens from Arteza are absolutely brilliant. They're a real brush, so they've got an actual brush, and you can see the colour comes off quite easily. If I put some onto the acrylic block, you can see it there. You've got that green. And there's several ways to do this. You can do it by using the brush directly onto the actual project like this, or you can put the ink onto the acrylic block and then take it off using the water pen. So I'm just going to do that just to show you that as well. So either way, you kind of achieve the same objective. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to just quickly colour the tree, and you can see I'm just dabbing around because what I'm going to do is probably put some fluffy stuff snow on here as well when I finish. So I'm trying not to cover too much the white bits because I'm actually going to cover them over, but I want to get the overall sort of green impression. So I'm just kind of dabbing it and going over like the main areas. Okay, that will do for that one. Then let's come over here. I'm just going to put some more green on my block. This is also a sparing way to use these pens so you don't use up all the ink that's in them. Okay, I'm just going to colour roughly. And don't worry if you colour over some of the white in an example like this, because you can then always go back over it. So again here, I'm colouring kind of the bottoms of the branches because I want some green, but I'm also going to put a load of snow on here as well. This stamp set I bought from, I think, Temu. So I don't actually know who makes it, but I found it cheap in one of their promotions and bought it. And just thought, oh, it's quite nice for a Christmas stamp. Quite a simple image, doesn't really need much adding to it. Okay, so there's our 3 trees, and they're kind of coloured. Now to clean these brushes, all you need is a cloth, and basically just squeeze the brush. Water will drip out of it. I think that's slightly off camera. If I do it again, you'll see water will drip out of it, and then you can literally just wipe it. And I usually turn it as well, that keeps it quite tight. And then you can move on to another colour. So that was the green. Now we need brown for the cabin. So I'm just going to turn my block, lay some brown on my acrylic block, and then again just take that up with the brush. And you can do this quite quickly. This is the good thing about these water pens. It's a very quick way of colouring. It doesn't take all the time that alcohol markers do. You can very quickly lay colour down, which is good. Especially in larger areas, without having to worry too much. A bit of brown there for the tree trunks as well. You can see I'm just kind of broadly colouring. Turn the brush sideways for any areas that need a little bit of detail. because you've got that option. Now this stamp is quite sort of messy down this area. I can't really tell what's what, but I'm just generally laying down the brown. There we go. Now the roof is pretty much covered in snow, but what I think I'm going to do is just give it a little wash, just so that if there's underneath visible by the time I finish, at least it's not going to be completely white. I need to decide what I'm going to do with the background. I'm not really too sure yet. There we go. Now we've got this interesting wonky chimney. I'm going to do that in a slightly different colour. I think I'm going to go for a kind of different brown. And on this one, I'm actually going to paint it directly on. What I'll do is I'll just paint a little bit kind of on the side and on the top, and then I will pull it using the water brush. I don't need to wash it because it's a similar tone. You can see I'm just going over that I just put on and kind of pulling it off. There we go. Now, because I've got that on the brush, I can also use that to just go through a few other areas and add a slightly different colour brown. There we go. I'm going to also just give that a little wash around the edge. There we go. Gonna just put some water on there and just give that a bit of a clean, but I'm going to leave some water on there, and I'm just going to lighten this a little bit, just take that off a little bit. And you can see I can do that with the water brush as well. As you go over it again, if you dry the brush, you're kind of taking the paint off now, so that's also another useful little trip. And this is quite heavy cardstock, so quite easy to use a lot of water on without having too much of a wrinkling effect. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get a grey. So this is a dolphin grey, I think it's called. Find a clean bit on your acrylic pad. I'm going to use this corner, and then I'm just going to pick up that grey, and now I'm going to go over the snowy areas with grey, because snow is not all white as a lot of people do. It's actually kind of got some greys and some blues in it. So I'm just going to give it a bit of a wash with some grey. And then, as I said, I will go over this with some fluffy stuff. Similarly again, just go over that. And this is the thing about these pens I love. They're very forgiving. If you make a mistake, just go over it with your water brush, dab it off with a piece of kitchen towel. They're very good like that. Right, there we go. There's our grey. And then I'm just going to do this area kind of at the bottom as well. There we go. And then I'm also going to now put a bit more grey on. So I'm going to lay down a bit more of that grey. I'm also going to add to it a little bit of light blue. So this is the Arctic blue. So I've got some grey there. I'm going to add some blue. I'm going to kind of mish it all up. Actually mixing it on my block. And then I'm just going to go in here like this. Just give it a bit of background. Doesn't have to be too precise. Don't worry about that area there where I mished that up. We can see and sort that. But I just don't want a great big white background. So I'm just going to lay that colour down. And it doesn't have to be right up to the trees. This style of stamp, it doesn't have to be super precise. So first of all, I'm laying down that base colour. That's mainly just to get a layer of colour onto the project. Now this bit area here, I'm just going to take that off with my cloth. So if I wet that area there and then just dab it, you'll see that colour disappear. There we go. And then take some more of the blue. So now I'm doing kind of up to the edges of the trees. And again, kind of go round. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take another colour, which in this instance is Palmer Grey, and I'm then just going to lay some actual colour down where I've just been. This looks a bit rubbish at the moment, and I'm hoping it's going to turn out okay. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over with the same colour, and I'm just going to kind of blend that out a little bit, and that will give us a kind of an interesting effect. Now, the more you blend, obviously, the more you lose the actual brush strokes. And whilst we do want them, we don't want it to look like the ramblings of a demented madman. So we'll kind of blend those out. You can see the effect we're coming. It's starting to look more like a sky with clouds and different colours, etc. Because we don't actually have a real background, we just need to give it a little bit of interest. I could have stamped in some mountains or something, or maybe even hand drawn them in, but I decided to keep it fairly neutral. But I'm just going to add a bit of interest with a little bit of colour. Just going to squeeze a little bit more water out there. And as I say, this paper, it's I think it's a 300 or 250 GSM. It's a watercolour paper designed specifically to hold a lot of water. So you can work it quite well. There we go. And now you can see that's starting to look quite interesting. You can see the sky's now got kind of variation in colour. And again, you could go in with another colour, maybe something like a very light green. This is green tea. I'll just lay a little bit of that on my block and just take some of that water from my block again. But again, we don't want loads of colour. So I'm kind of blending that out just into the background. There you go. You can see the effect that has. Kind of just adds another layer of depth. There we go. So we're starting to see we've now got darkness coming around the edges of the trees, etc., which starts to give it just a little bit of contrast and puts it into a real world, basically, which is what we want. Cool, I'm just going to add a little bit more of that. I'm going to do it on my block, and then just take that in. Just going to go around the trees, and then I'll pull that out with some water. So I'll squeeze some drops of water onto my block, I'll dab that on my cloth, and then, see, taking it out basically. So you kind of add the colour and then you kind of blend it out. It just gives it a bit more of a focal point. There we go. So that's looking quite nice at the moment. To clean my brush, I'm just going to squeeze some water and then wipe up my cloth. I normally have kitchen towel next to me, but it's actually across the room, so I can't be getting that at the moment. Okay, now I'm just going to dry this quickly. Apologies for the noise. Just spotted a bit there that needs some colour, so I'm just going to go in there with a bit of green and just dab that out a little bit. There we go. There we go, that's fine. Clean that again. Sorry, I'm just going to dry. Better if you pick it up and dry it, because you'll find the heat passes through the paper and dries it without warping it so much. Apologies, this is probably horrendously out of focus while I'm kind of moving backwards and forwards. So dry the front and always dry the back as well. If the paper does bend, that will encourage the paper to bend itself back. There we go, that's relatively dry. I've just noticed we've got a little mark there. I'm just going to blend that out a little bit. There we go. Perfect. Cool. Now, I've got my fluffy stuff. This is a product by Cosmic Shimmer. It's called Fluffy Stuff. It comes in a tube. It's an actual liquid. And basically what you do, you put the fluffy stuff onto your project, kind of dab it on, then you heat it, moving the heat tool all the time, and then it kind of fluffs up like snow. So it's really ideal for a project like this. My project is dry. I've just sort of checked that. Basically, you can just go straight in. So I'm just going to hold the thing back. It's always a good idea when you're doing something like this to just test it on a piece of paper first before you go straight into the project, just to make sure the nozzle's clean. It's going to come out okay. Yeah, that looks fine. So I'm going to go on to this. I'm going to put quite a lot on because we've got a lot of snowy areas. So how I'm going to do it, I'm just going to kind of dab it on. So I'm going to dab it onto the trees in the areas that are white because I want lots of snow. And obviously the more you put on, the thicker it becomes when you fluff it up. Don't worry if you cover over the lines because it's all kind of part of the image. So I'm just dabbing that on. You can see quite randomly, doesn't really, you don't need to be particularly precise. You can put it in areas where there aren't white areas. I mean, it's up to you completely. Put some on the ground as well. Follow those lines. And then on the house as well, we need some, best not to do it in sort of straight lines, I find. Better to kind of blob it. And it's a very interesting effect when it is heated. You'll see what happens. So I'm just going to mainly concentrate on like the roof area. Back on the trees again. So just work your way around. You can always add more, but it's a very interesting product and it creates a lovely effect. So work your way around, blobbing, blobbing, blobbing. Apologies if you can hear my little dog barking. I don't know what he can hear, something outside going on clearly. And then obviously blob around the bottom. So we need to just think what we're going to do here. So I think here we'll go there, and then we'll kind of pile the snow up around the house. So I would probably lay down a row and then just kind of pull it a bit. And then I think for good measure we'll put a few bits kind of on the steps. There we go. Okay, I can always go back in, as I say. So that's our fluffy stuff. Again, just showing Cosmic Shimmer Fluffy Stuff, £3.50. Bought that at a craft fair. Right, I've got my heat tool. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. Heat that up. Now the thing with this is you must keep moving. Do not stop because you'll find you burn the product. So get your heat tool warm, test it with your hand, and then just start heating slowly. Now I'll lift this up so you can see it. I'm hoping that the heat gun won't cause too much. Okay, if I do that, you can see it all fluffs up. Okay, I'm going to just now lay that down and just kind of work my way around it. As I say, you must keep the heat gun moving. Don't heat one bit too much because it kind of burns the product. But it's a very interesting effect. You see there at the bottom. As you heat it, you can also heat it from underneath. But just as long as you keep the heat gun moving, it kind of does its stuff, which is good. I think this is a great product. It really does create a very interesting effect. Right, now I'm going to heat the back just to make sure. So I'm going to put it down for that reason. Just going to work my way across the back of the card. Apologies, this isn't particularly interesting. And then just lay it down. Just go over it one more time just to make sure I don't miss any bits. And there you go. So if I hold that up, you can see just how 3D that is. It really does stand out from the paper. So it creates a really interesting effect. You obviously need to colour behind it because once you've done this, you can't really do anything else. But what I might do is just add a bit of sparkle on top of it as well. So how I would do that, I would let it cool, and then I would use my Nuvo Winker Stella. This is a glitter gloss pen. And basically, once that's cooled, you can then use that on top of it. So if I grab, I'll show you how that works. So these are the 4 bits that I just blobbed to try it. If I just expand those out, you can see now they've kind of expanded out and grown. I think you have to leave it to cool for sure, because otherwise it's going to I think it probably just would absorb the ink. It's quite an interesting product. It kind of feels like foam. But what you can do, you get the Stella pen. You can see when you colour, I don't know if you can really see that, but when you colour with it, you get sort of like a shiny effect. You can then go over this with it, or you could stick glitter onto it. So I'm just going to blob this on, which will kind of give it a shiny effect. If I do this, if I squeeze this pen, you can see it blobs a load of liquid onto the tape. What I'm going to do is actually take it off there to make sure I'm getting kind of like a healthy amount. And that just gives it a little bit of shimmer and shine. It's quite subtle, doesn't scream, which is quite nice. But when you look at the card in certain light, you'll then see the shimmer, which is nice. There we go. And then if I hold that up, you can see that, but it's got kind of a little shimmer to it, which is good. Okay, that's it really. That's today's video. I'm just demonstrating really how to colour something like this quite quickly, and then how to also get that sort of shimmery snow effect. If I just put a little bit of light onto it, that might just help. You can kind of see the shimmer and the shine, but the main thing here is you've obviously got the 3D effect from the snow. So all that's left for me to do is now mount that onto probably a black surround and then a card blank. And that's today's card done. If you enjoyed that, obviously that's a technique video. I do show videos where I make a card from scratch all the way through to finishing. They're on my channel in the card making section. I'll post this one in the technique section. If you enjoyed watching today, please give me a like and maybe subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Bye. And here's the finished card.